Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to class. Um, it's nice seeing everyone. It's been a while. Sorry, I had a small power outage problem and wasn't really able to record on my normal setup, and I just didn't like how things were turning out. But today we're going to do what we wanted to cover last week, which is going to be Google Sheets. I'm going to say it in advance, this video might run a little bit longer than I like, mostly because I want to cover a lot of information on the basics of Sheets, so that as we go through the week, we can do more of the advanced things. Google Sheets, for those of you that aren't aware, is Google's spreadsheet program. Think Microsoft Excel. You'll have shells and things, and we'll get into that in a little bit, as well as a little sneak preview of what we're going to be talking about. Sheets, though, is something I feel that a lot of teachers can use, but don't. Whether it's because they're not familiar with it, they don't know what its capabilities are, they're nervous. We're here to try and help with that this week. Because Sheets is really powerful and it can be used in a lot of different subjects. And if you use it well, it can be a real asset to your classroom, as well as giving and showing students skills that they can use when they start looking for their first jobs, either as students or when they leave school and start looking for jobs in the real world. Because spreadsheets are all about data, and data really is what drives most of our society. But that's enough boring talk. Let's get into the actual thing. The couple ways you can get into Google Sheets: you can go to your waffle, and you can scroll down and hit the Sheets button, and it'll bring you to the Google Sheets homepage. Then you just click a blank list or whatever preset you wanted to use. Some people like going into Google Drive, and then you do New Sheets, and open up a spreadsheet. Me, I always like to tell people I'm lazy, and I just do sheets.new, which is a thing Google put out a while ago, but basically docs, sheets, and slides. If you do docs.new, sheets.new, or slides.new, it opens up a Google, that appropriate thing as a blank. A little time saver, it helps out. If you're, looking for a time cruncher, it's like, oh no, I need to open something real quick to take notes. But here's Google Sheets in all of its sheety glory. A couple things at the very top is where you'll put the name of your spreadsheet, demonstration. I totally spelled that wrong, I think. I'll get to that later. And then going across the top, you have your standard headers there: file, edit, view, insert, format, data, all that stuff. We'll get to some of that later. Let's talk about, though, the main body of this. So a spreadsheet is broken up into columns and rows. Rows are ordered by number. They give you 1,000 to start. You can always add more if you need more than 1,000. Columns start at A, go all the way to Z. Yes, you can go beyond Z. It just starts doubling the letters of the alphabet. So it'll be then AA, AB, AC, AD, etc. A couple things that throw people off a lot of times. They'll go and let's say they wanted to get rid of a column. You can right click on the column, choose delete column, and it removes the column, and they'll come to me and they'll go, Eric, I deleted a column, but it's still there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like I go to column A, okay, I right click, I hit delete column, and column A stays there, and I go, okay, I see what's happening. The columns are always lettered the same way. The first column is always column A. If I went and I deleted up to column K, you'll see it's still column A through K. Because what happens is cells reference these when we start getting into formulas, and you can't have the cell changing just because the column got erased. So it works on keeping all of that stuff the same. The same applies for your rows. If I delete a whole bunch of rows, it's still numbered 1, but if I go to the bottom, I can see that they've been removed. So don't freak out when you're doing that. That's why it's always good to I always like to do row 1 as my headers. This way if I delete something, I can see it's been deleted. But yes, every one of these cells is assigned a letter number. Basically, it's a coordinate plane. A1, B1, C1, A2, B2, C2. Like I said, when we start getting the formulas, you'll be using those as references to help you do things. But for right now, we're going to lay off that. I don't want to scare anyone away too soon. So each one of these cells is what you're going to work in as an individual. Cells can have anything put into them that you want. You can type in text. You can type in numbers. You can type in formulas. And you'll see that when I do a formula, it actually gives me the answer. It doesn't show me the formula. More on that later. Don't freak out on me yet. A couple things you'll notice that some of these are oriented a little differently. The text is oriented to the left, and you'll notice that it's kind of carrying over into the next cell. We'll talk about that in a minute. Numbers by default are aligned to the right because they go in as a numerical value, and Sheets separates them. I can make it left aligned if I wanted to. I just go here and I choose left alignment on my alignment section. So no need to freak out. But it's just how they default it for you guys. So moving along, a couple other things we can take a look at here. One is a currency. So if I hit the currency button, it automatically takes the value and turns it into a currency. Quite helpful if you're trying to deal with money and you're trying to make sure the kids remember to utilize dollar signs and all that stuff. If I didn't want it to be money, I can also format things as a percent, and it'll convert the number into a percentage. So let's just say I typed in the number 1 here. You'll see that goes to 1%. It's important to make sure you're paying aware of that, just because it can throw things off when you do percents if it's not that way to begin with. So here's 1. I make it a percent. Now it's 100%. There's difference, so you gotta be careful when you're hitting the percent button after you've typed in a number. It's going to add those 2 after. It's going to add those 2 zeros after. So just something to be aware of. It's not a terrible thing. I can also adjust decimal points. So if I wanted fewer decimal points or places, I can reduce them. And if I come up here, you'll notice that as I reduce them, it does do the rounding for you. Or I can increase the decimal points as well. It's very helpful if you want to make sure everything has the same number of decimal points. So you'll see if I selected multiple things, they will automatically adjust to get the first one to match, and then they go on from there. And then if one of those formats doesn't work for you, you can always find more formatting options. They've got plenty, and you can even make some of your own custom formats if needed. Next to that, we've got our font size, or our font style, and our font size. I think everyone's familiar with those. Same with bold, italic, strike through, and text color. I'm going to assume everyone knows how all those work. I've got my fill color, so if I wanted to fill in a cell in a different color, I can do that. I have my borders. Now, cells show borders, but if I was going to print this out right now, those borders aren't necessarily going to show up. But by adding in a text color, by adding in a border color, I can now get that to show up when printed. You can also change your border color if you want to make something more fun. You can also change your border style. Thicker lines, thinner lines, dotted lines, double lines are what you have available to you. You can also customize what border lines get shown. You don't have to use all of them if you only want to show just the outside border of the whole thing. But that individual cells, you can do that. It's doable. Moving on, we've got the merge cells. So let's say you want to put, something was larger, or it was like a title of a chart that went across like 4 or 5 columns. You can hit merge cell, and now they're all one cell. Be careful when you merge. If you merge and there's text in multiple cells that you're merging, it's going to take the top leftmost cell and keep that information. Everything else is going to get deleted. If you want to unmerge your cells, you just simply re-click and your cells get unmerged. We already went through horizontal alignment. The other thing we have our vertical alignment and text wrapping, and I'm going to do these together just to show you what it means. So let's take a couple lines here. Let's do a hello world. How are you doing? I am doing well. Okay, so we've got 3 lines of text here. One of the things I told you guys earlier was when you type, your cells might bleed over. And you'll see that when that happens, if you type in the cell after it, it just kind of cuts it. And you can't read the whole sentence. I can click on it and see it, but I can't read it on the cell. And so I have a couple options of how to address that. I can change the cell width. So if I move my mouse in between B and C, you'll see my cursor goes from a standard pointer to this double-ended pointer. And if I click, I can drag and adjust the width of cell B. If I want to be lazier or I was trying to be more exact, if I get that same double bar, I double click, it'll automatically adjust that size to whatever the contents are. So either growing it or shrinking it appropriately. But I might want to keep all my columns the same width, or it's just one thing that's like an outlier and is really super long. I can come over here to where it says text wrapping, and I can choose wrap. And now what that's going to do, as long as I'm clicking in the right cell, and now what that does is that causes when your text reaches the end of the cell, it goes down to the next line. Just like how you would be typing in a doc. So look, it does docs. But what you'll notice is the information now in the other cells has been bumped to the bottom of their cell because this row height has now changed. I may not want that at the bottom. I might be a person who prefers everything staying at the top. So vertical alignment comes in handy there because I can choose to align to the top, to the middle, or to the bottom. That all becomes your preference. I can't dictate what works best for you. But my personal thing is I like doing the middle more often than not. Final thing to take note on this area is you can do text rotation, so I can angle my text like so. I know some people like to do that for headers for whatever reason. That's your call. I don't judge. But it can be done. You can do any sort of rotation you want to do. You'll notice it goes negative 90 to 90 as opposed to 0 to 180 or 360. You can still type that in. It's just kind of silly. I always tell kids with a lot of this, like, you don't really need to go beyond 90 to 180 depending on what you're trying to do. If need be, you also have the ability to insert links through the link. You can also insert comments into a cell, and the comment does become attached to a cell, not just a spot in the text. Insert charts, which we're going to get to later on in the week, showing you guys how to make and create some really fun charts. Create a filter. Again, we're going to get to that later in the week, but I'll teach you how to filter data. And then finally, functions. And again, we'll probably get to that later. We're going to get to that later in the week. And this is really what makes Sheets so powerful, is that you can have it do your math for you. You can have it do all the work for you. You've got a thing of 100 numbers that you need to get the total of, just use the sum function. You want their average, use average. You want to know what the biggest number in that list is, use max. You want to know the smallest, hit min. And it'll spit the answer right back out to you. You've got 700, you've got, a set of math problems. Like you've got a column of like value 1 in A and value 2 in B, and they want you to get the product in C. And you've got 100 of those. You can get that done in 10 seconds, maybe faster. Once you're comfortable with it, as long as you know how to do a product, you're fine. Pythagorean theorem, all of it can be done through Sheets with a little bit of work and elbow grease, and that's what makes it a really powerful tool. And I feel it makes it a good way to assess a kid's knowledge of a formula as well. But that's my opinion. But yeah, so that's like our quick little intro to Sheets. Like I said, and you saw, there's a lot more that we're going to get into. So we're probably going to look at our functions next and our formulas, and go from there, building out. And eventually I'm going to be showing you guys how to create a scavenger hunt that self-grades itself. And that idea comes from a colleague who asked me to try and create one for them. So I hope you guys join me this week as we go through Google Sheets. I look forward to exploring this and showing this to you guys. It's like I said, it's a program I feel gets very underutilized. And so I hope you guys enjoy this with me. Until tomorrow, everybody, class dismissed.